Welcome. We're here to interview and introduce a contributor to the Mastermind, Gayle Borst. And then, Gayle, one of the things that everybody likes to know is how did you find Hemp or Hempcrete? What was your origin story if you were a superhero? How did you find your way down the rabbit hole? And then tell us about that pathway to where you are now.
Oh, wow. You're really challenging my memory here.
Do you have to hop in your Wayback Time machine?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I'm trying to remember who originally introduced me to it. I remember the first time I saw it, but oh my goodness. Yeah. That's a really good question. I think I'm going to have to search the memory banks for that one. So I've been involved with natural building for a long time, and then Hempcrete probably just popped up maybe in Building Green or one of the good environmental building uh, publications. So it was just a natural fit since I've been doing natural building for such a long time.
So it's just something that was in the room that was relevant, and then you slowly but surely took more notice of it until it kind of accumulated a critical mass to where it's like, hey, let's look at this in projects. And then I guess to start with telling us about your business, and you do on the design phase, and then there's two main folks that are in the mastermind that are the professional route, and those who are in the design aspect of it, like yourself, and then those who are in the fulfillment side, like a general contractor and subcontractor. And then and we like those two sides of things to connect and talk. So tell us about your design efforts and then your pathway to getting into natural building, and then how this came about and some of those first projects that come to mind.
Wow. So yes, I am on the design end, and I've had my company Stewardship Inc. for how many years now? Like 40 years now. And I started it originally as a firm devoted to sustainable building, and then evolved very quickly into natural building. So I've been in this general area for a long time. And I've always been looking for new systems, especially wall systems. It tends to be the biggest thing.
A little bit, and I know in previous conversations we both had the familiarity with the Bamberger Ranch up in Johnson City, Texas, and I know that was one thing that their big focus could be summed up in one word, and that's stewardship. And then I've always enjoyed that word. I've wrapped a lot of my professional career pursuits around it, and that's one of the reasons I was really intrigued by the name of your company and sought you out, was that you had that front and center. And so I know that I gained that insight from my previous lifetime work in the composting or organics recycling industry. And so I like how that carries forward into having a bio-based building material, that I knew it was relevant when I was doing fix and flips, and I was renovating houses that were 20 years old, but the ones that were 100 years old were okay, and then all because of certain reasons. So everything kind of came together, and like you said, it developed critical mass. And so just some of the parts and pieces, and they're not all critical, but I think everybody likes to know, what makes people tick and how they got there, and a little bit about that. It's not all just cut and dried nuts and bolts on this. A lot of folks in this space really have a strong motivation for a different thing, whether it's designing, and the style that you can put, whether it's curved walls. Sometimes it's super efficient. And it's the efficiency that's there. Sometimes it's the chemical sensitivities. And so those are some of the motivating factors from along the way. Did I get you a good head start?
Yeah, and this is why it's so hard to answer, because I come at it from so many directions. So I was
me too.
I was a biology and chemistry major back in undergraduate school in the School of Liberal Arts and Sciences. So we were all over the place. I mean, I love everything, but I'm definitely interested in biological systems. So that really got me started. And then I always liked art. And so I kind of combined my biology and my love of art, and thought, oh, okay, after I graduated in biology and didn't go to med school. So I thought, okay, architecture. This looks like a good combination of art and science and creativity and just all those good things. So anyway, I went into that, and wasn't long before I got really discouraged doing mainly work for developers, which was really kind of heartless, conventional kind of stuff. So that's when I went back to school in architecture. And then it really combined nicely with my biology, unbeknownst to me, and as I got involved in sustainable building early on, with the city of Austin started the green building program years ago. It was what I think like the first green building program in the country. And I got involved in that, and there was just no going back. And I just went deeper and deeper into the natural building, went out to California to take a cob workshop. And it's like, oh, this is it. This is so good. And so I love, love, love earth and construction. It's not as easy to mainstream as some alternative systems are. So that's why I think I was especially drawn to hemp lime, because it can still be considered a natural system, and it performs in a natural way, but yet it can slide a little bit more into the conventional realm without as much trouble. Construction workers aren't used to having mud on their hands. Yeah. Lime and sand and whatever, I think they can deal with. But anyway, it just holds so much promise. And then with the more recent interest in low carbon materials, it looks like such a sweet system to go mainstream.
Yeah, it's easy to close your eyes and imagine every house being built in a subdivision as you just drove through it, or as you're driving through it. It's easy to imagine, okay, that could be insulated with this material. And then any more innovations, well, now you're doing something structural, but you can see the pathway. And I really enjoy that about it. And so you were learning about cob, the biology. I enjoy learning that about your backstory, because from what I understand in like the European architectural disciplines, that's a requirement to study the biological components of the built space. It's not just, making it more rigid, making it last longer, making it sealed up tight. The biology is important. And then if you want to talk a little bit more about that and how those two connect, I think that'd be very interesting.
Yes. And really in many ways, one is as we start to talk about breathable walls, which isn't a good term to use anyway.
I know, vapor open is what I've been admonished to.
Right. But I do like that notion, thinking of the building kind of as a living system, and it's something that we need to interact with. It's something that needs to be taken care of, and it takes care of us. And so I think it really relates on that level, and it also relates on the whole occupant health thing and worker health. I don't want to design buildings that are a danger for those who are building them or for living in them. So it's just really important. So indoor air quality has become such a huge issue to me, and especially as in the area where I can have an effect on building materials and choose materials that we don't have to air out the house after it's built before people can live in it, which is what or bake it out. That was one of the strategies that was suggested early on. Well, let's just bake these toxins out before people move in. Well, no, let's just not put the toxins in at all in the first place. So that's a good thing. And then I noticed through all the green building programs and all that, well, okay, we're doing all these good things, creating all these healthy buildings. And then people are moving in with their furniture that's off gassing and doing cooking things that are creating issues. So anyway, it just keeps snowballing. But I'm kind of getting off the hemp lime topic. But it's so connected, and that's another biological connection. It's not just a house made up of components. It's a system, and not just the house itself, but the surroundings. I'm a permaculturist, and when I design, I'm very aware of the whole climate and the effect that has on my designs. Like, yes, we need overhangs in this climate, in spite of the trend towards no overhangs. We need overhangs here. So just things like that.
Yeah, I wish it could be a commandment. Thou shalt have eaves and overhangs, and so there's a lot of the things that I really like how you point that out as their systems, because I think one of the difficulties of embracing hemp lime as a technology is because in the building space we often want to one-to-one replace. And so, but if you replace one thing with this particular new thing, well, then now that changes these other several things, because they don't all function together, and one thing functions with the other. And we have to know the interconnectivity between all these materials. And I like how the biological world just can be very key connection between, the bumblebee, the flower, the insecticide, and all the other things. It's kind of easy to connect those dots, but it's a slow, methodical, moldy destruction of a living space if you don't get that right in a house. And sometimes the hardship isn't realized until two or three owners down the road. And then you're like, well, now this is a terrible thing to have to repair or redo. And so now you were talking about the ideal scenario to deploy this passion. You know, you've got the biological passion and the science side of things. You've got the artistic and creative side, and then you didn't like the grind and the mass production, though it pays the bills, and it's where we get a lot of societal benefit when it's all embraced. But to incubate that and deploy the skill sets that you've got right now, talk a little bit about your ideal client, your ideal scenario for you to work. Now, we talked about, you know, sharing some knowledge and exchanging ideas on the forum and on the mastermind group and things like that. And then you're like, well, that's great. Yes. And then, you know, that way other people can know. But how would people engage with you the best? And what's your ideal project? What's your ideal customer? Is it like the small one that has a high concept, like what we met out at Nora Linda's in Dripping Springs, or is it more of a bigger build, or what makes you the happiest when the phone rings?
Well, size doesn't really matter because, you know, I've done residential, small residential. I love tiny. I've done tiny houses. I love that. But I've also done commercial and got a wellness center project. Actually, had two wellness center projects. So bigger projects are fine too. But I think the most important thing is a client that is truly passionate about having their home be healthy for them and for the planet, and really committed to it, because that's what really matters is the commitment, because it's not the easiest route to go. The easiest route to go is stick construction with a you know, conventional everything, but you get what you pay for. And so somebody that wants custom and healthy and, to me, responsible. And the only way I work is as a team. We put together a team early on, try to get the builder on board just as soon as possible. As soon as we know what the primary wall system is, we like to get a builder on board because their input is just invaluable. And then the owner. So consider that the primary team is the owner, architect, and the builder, and then we bring in others as need be, and again, regardless of size, but usually those core people, and we work as a team. I like to give homework to my clients, and and you know, we're all involved, and we all help one another make decisions, and the primary goal is just for us to produce the best product we possibly can, and still kind of keep within the budget, because which is hard. I mean, anything is possible for a lot amount of money, but I don't dislike the challenge of staying in a budget or staying in a certain number of square feet. That one I actually really like, because I like the design challenge of building right-sized or designing right-sized spaces.
And a smaller design, in my opinion, is infinitely more difficult because you're fighting for inches instead of just adding on a wing to the house. And I really like what you said about the team approach, and it's something that on the Mastermind we really try to foster those incubations of thought and the exchange of ideas early on in the design process, because what we know about the hemp lime installation is that the design can create a problem for the installer, and the installer can create a problem for everybody back up the food chain as well. And so in that process, it's good to have all of those ideas and all those perspectives shared. Tell us a little bit about how you initiate that on the front end. Do you usually get the first call from the client, or do you get the first call from the builder? And then how would you advise people to foster that type of conversation to where everybody exchanges ideas?
Mm-hmm. I would say generally the first contact is from the owner. Every once in a while, I do get a builder, especially in the earlier years, like straw bale construction was what first started down here as an alternate construction. And a lot of times it was the builders. It seems like builders get on board with new things faster than architects or regulators, because builders are there to do what the client wants. You know, they'll kind of do whatever they're paid to do, and a lot of them are willing to learn new tricks. And a lot of the builders that I know like working with new systems. Like one of my builders, used to do commercial construction, and you know, and I think he just kind of got bored with that, and he started doing residential, and he got sort of bored with that. So he started doing alternative residential construction, because that's where alternative tends to get introduced more easily rather than in commercial. So yeah, for those who like the challenges, which I do, I mean, it's just fabulous. And so I've worked for like maybe 20 years with a group called Casa Verde Builders. They're a youth build group through AmeriCorps who builds affordable, sustainable homes. We did the first one in conjunction with, let's see, it was Casa Verde Builders, the City of Austin Green Building Program, and Habitat for Humanity. We did, you know, years and years ago. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. There's just so much to talk about, but I'm again off the subject. But it's all related. So the youth build group has built with alternative materials all along. So it was really fun because we tried all these different wall systems as they came in to the, you know, more awareness and environmental issues arose in the building industry, and so we get to try all these different things. It was really good, and in fact, we're working on trying to get them to train their kids. So they train their kids, in the ones that are interested in construction, and they came to me recently and said, okay, somebody has approached us about training our kids in hemp lime. What do you think about it? And I said, oh yeah, you know, let's do it. And their big thing is, will there be jobs for these kids when they get out? And the way the industry
is it a worthwhile pursuit, or is this just the world of one-off? And then that's something that, and I love how you mentioned that the builders will often do what they're paid to do, and it's no fault against them. We're in the marketplace doing stuff for money. And then what I like about your approach on the education side, and one of the things that we're also passionate about, is that if enough people are informed and educated, then if the marketplace wants the right things for the right reasons, we're Americans. We don't care what it is. If the market wants it, we're going to get it to the marketplace. And a marketplace wanting the right things for the right reasons is just a powerful force of nature, and it's what will drive things. And so one thing I really enjoy about the environmental stewardship focus that's in today's fervor is that it leads us to have that motivation to want those right things for the right reasons. And then and then as far as educating like the kids going into that, man, that's exciting. And so I hope those projects come to fruition. I know that's something that you and I were talking about offline as well. And so we'll update everybody on how those progress as well. And then, do you have any stories from the clients that they told you how they found out it? You know, I tested you a little bit earlier and made you get in your Wayback Time machine about how you first went down the rabbit hole. Are there any examples from your clients? I know many people will have a health issue or something like that that just forces them into the knowledge pathway. Do you have any stories about how people came about to find you?
Sure. But first, let me clarify what I said about builders doing anything that the clients asked for. That was truly meant as a compliment. And the others of us, like my profession and the regulators, they're the slow ones. The builders they're on board, at least the ones that like the challenges and the creativity. So kudos. I love builders. So. And I should have been one, but I was too old by the time I got into building. But I actually, a little bit of an aside. So I ran a nonprofit group called Design, Build, Live for years and years. And our mission was to promote natural building. But back in the days, we didn't have professional builders. So it was like, okay, Gayle will learn something and then Gayle will go teach it to somebody. So that's what we kind of did. And then we got others coming in, and then the builders started getting involved with, like I said, with straw bale and other alternative systems. And oh my gosh, it's been so wonderful having the professionalism instead of my version of lime plaster. Now we have real lime plaster. And mine was good. Mine was okay. But now what the builders bring to it is it's just wonderful. So that's that. So a little bit, so back to your question.
But what you found, if you had any stories from what drew clients to you, what made them pick up the phone or seek you out, and then how did they go down the rabbit hole in their motivation?
Yeah. Okay. So Yeah, I've always operated just off of word of mouth. I mean, it's been wonderful. And probably being involved with the Austin Energy Green Building Program has been a wonderful network that a lot of people didn't have. So that helped. And then I did the design for that first house that I mentioned, the Casa Verde Learning Project, and that really got me connected with a lot of people. And I did that as a volunteer. So that's what I do urge a lot of people to do. Some volunteerism if you're trying to get your foot in the door, and then you can actually make a living doing it eventually. So thankfully we've kind of plowed through a lot of the early stuff, and natural building right now I think is extremely popular and is becoming even more so as people are more aware of the health implications and two, the environmental issues. So
Yeah, and then we were talking about that with a family member the other night, is that, networking has changed. It's not all about going to a conference or the business meeting or the cocktail party or this, that, and the other. We can network right here on these phones or on our computers. And then if there's somebody that, if we want to be found or if we want to find somebody, it's easier than ever before. But if we know to go out and seek out that networking opportunity and foster it on purpose, well, then now everybody connects the dots a lot easier. And so that's one of the things that we're passionate about as well. So I'm glad you brought that up on there. And so now, we've talked a little bit about finding someone like you, and initiating that process, and, the value of whether you're the builder or the designer or the customer, insisting on that meeting of the minds early on. It's so valuable. And then everybody's on pulling in the same direction and not adversarial, and then not upset at each other later on. It prevents a lot of things down the road. But then, now you're in the middle of the process. So once the design is done, and then all of the things are, they like it, they love it, all the ideas have been shared, the paper has been printed, it's in the roll is out on the construction table. Tell us a little bit about the process, about what you would advise someone to do as an architect, going through and navigating that and guiding that process, what you would advise someone as a contractor, either the GC or the subcontractor, and then what advice would you give to the homeowner about the process from the start all the way through the build? What are some of the sticking points that you see, and what are some of the advantages that you see?
well, as I said, I always insist on putting the team together early on, and of course everybody needs to check egos at the door, because we're
No.
and here is a team. Yeah, we're here is a team, and again, the objective is to create the best project we possibly can. So that's off to a good start. And then having the builder involved early on, they're part of the process and they continue to be. And then come construction phase, a lot of times I can really step back in most cases, because I'm working with builders that I trust and that know the project, and that know the process. But I'm there for questions, either from the owner, from the builder, or whatever, and details, because in residential we can't usually afford to detail everything out, and a lot of times the builders are they either want to and are perfectly capable of doing the details. Now if it's a detail that affects the aesthetics, then I try to get that done ahead of time. But there's always something that comes up, and so we work as a team to solve the problems, and not just problems, but just it's a process. You can't plan it all out ahead of time and expect it to just keep going. So yeah,
like
again, the team approach and communication. Good.
Yeah, I like that summary word of it being a process. Plan as much as you possibly can, but then trust the process of when you have those questions coming up. But you've planned for the things that you haven't planned for, and so that you're prepared to be spontaneous. You're prepared to make a in the field decision, and you've built those relationships. And one thing I like about meeting early on is that I like to check the ego at the door. If the ego doesn't even fit through the door, well, then now it's like maybe a different team selection. And everybody doesn't work together, and that's one of the things that I've had to learn the hard way, is that some people that work really well together don't work really well together with everyone, and everybody's not everybody's cup of tea. And so that first few dates, if you will, to get things together is very, very important. And so so going on through the project, we've talked about a little bit of the backstory. We've talked about some of the project and the execution phases. One thing I always like to come back to is when people engage and they ask questions. Now, we've heard all sorts of questions. I like to phrase this in two different ways. What are some of the questions that are some of the most frequently asked, or one of your favorites that you really wish people had this nugget of knowledge in their head? And then what are some of the things that you wish people would ask? So I'll let you dive in on either of those two or both.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. What do they ask? What's a question that they ask that I like? Well, I don't know that there's just one, but I like when owners ask questions in general, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. Never, ever. And yeah, and again, just openness. So if questions are just taken at face value and not as a challenge, which I think is important, because we're all learning from one another. I know I learned something new and wonderful from every one of my clients, just amazing things from my clients. And then they learn new things from me, because a lot of times they won't understand why I've designed things a certain way. And they ask, and I like telling them why, because there aren't many decisions I make for no reason at all. I'm pretty pragmatic in my approach, because it's got to be functional art. If it needs to be beautiful, but it needs to be functional art. And
Amen.
and there's so many factors that go into this. It's the materials, it's how the materials go in, it's how the materials interact with each other. It's why have I got more windows on the north side than the south side? Don't all the books say you should have lots of windows on the south and none on the north? Well, not in this climate. But anyway, so I can't think of any one question, but just
Well, I think just the concept of openness to questions is a huge revelation, and then just the openness to, as a designer or as the builder, somebody who's on the designer fulfillment side, having the patience and the wherewithal and the expectation of having the wherewithal to explain why. Because then one thing I guarantee about building with any type of natural material, hemp, lime, or other, is that it's going to be difficult. And there's going to be things that need to be embraced. And you have to know why they're difficult, because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, boy, that's a frustrating process. And so I really like the openness answer, and then just that general criteria. And then if a homeowner has a design professional putting something in there that they don't understand and they feel like they're not being listened to, that is a quiet riff in that relationship. And then these are relationships, and that quiet riff is festers and festers and festers, and then one day they're throwing the teapot across the job site and don't know why. And then it's kind of like, well, you got to unpack those things. And so I like that, being open, and then being patient with folks, because then it makes everybody solid on what they're doing and why. So that's perfect. So now, in your ideal client, it's not about being a large project or small project. And then you've shared that, the community is something that you see the stewardship value can have influence here. And then we're going to share out as much knowledge as we can here. How else would you like for people to engage with you? And then as far as, watch the schedule, see when you're going to be on. And then as we're going through different topics on the design or details within design, we're going to book out several different folks, and so people can watch the schedule and the calendar here. But how else would you like people to engage with you the most? Some people like LinkedIn, some people like text, some people like Instagram. What's your favorite form of engagement? And, what's the ideal scenario?
I guess the old-fashioned email or phone are best for me. But but I should mention too, though, before I forget, as far as how people can engage with me, I like working with do-it-yourselfers. I like doing consultation. It doesn't have to be full-blown design services.
Okay.
I do especially like do-it-yourselfers. And a lot of times I can really bring value to a project when somebody's doing something new for the first time, like building their first house. There's some do-it-yourselfers that have built before, but most do-it-yourselfers, it's their first time. And it's usually well worth the cost of engaging a professional, whether it's a builder as a consultant, another builder, but most likely it's probably going to be an architect, because you have builder. A lot of times a builder as a consultant is a good choice, but either a professional builder or an architect with experience in whatever type of construction you're doing is really is often a very good investment and can save a lot of headaches. And even though a lot of people going into a project think, okay, I can do this, it's really complicated. Builders really earn their money. They really do. So yeah, it's not simple. Houses maybe used to be simple, but they aren't anymore. We've got to deal with regulations. We've got to deal with changing products and technology, and it's a lot for anybody to handle. It really is. So yeah.
So the consulting side, have people be prepared to, spend a little bit to get a little bit, because a little bit over time has a tremendous amount of impact and influence. And so if people find this introduction interview and they're finding their way to the community and or the mastermind group, one of the things that we like to conclude with is just to, send us the information that you'd like for us to bring to pros like Gayle and others in the design space or the fulfillment space. And then we'll go out and then we'll reach out and connect and bring those minds back together. And then, because I guarantee you, we're not the only one that Gayle knows in this space. And then one thing I know about her is that she really likes to be helpful and get people the right information and have that influence for the right reason. And so any last thoughts or conclusions on things moving forward? Anything on the horizon project-wise or effort-wise that you're excited about that you'd like to share?
Well, I'm excited to be I'm really looking forward to doing more hemp lime projects, and a lot of my more remote projects. I think it's a really good choice, because like I profess my love of cob, but that's a little bit hard. One, it's hard to get builders to do it, and especially in remote places. We're kind of spoiled or lucky or whatever in Central Texas here, because we have some good natural builders. Not enough, but some good natural builders who can do things. But what I like about the hemp lime is not only from an environmental standpoint, but for a practical standpoint, for a good wall system, which is what I would call this, in more remote areas. The materials I think are more shippable than some, because of the scale of them, and the amount of time that it would take, even if you bring in a hempcrete professional to do the walls, it's only a limited amount of time. And in remote places that makes a difference, because it's kind of hard to deal with people when you're that far away from civilization. So but yeah, I really love to see anybody consider hemp lime or any of the natural wall systems. There are just so many advantages over conventional for so many reasons. And we all need to protect our health as much as we can. And if you start out with a healthy envelope around you, that you're way ahead of the game. And people love and react to their natural homes in such a different way than conventional. It's just like, it feels so good in here. And
it is unique, and then it is different. And then if somebody told me that 5 years ago, I probably would have teased and poked and made fun of them and all of that. But having been in some of these structures, I myself, cynical as they come, brutally pragmatic as they come, I walk in there and I go, the energy is different in here. This is different. Things don't hurt. You breathe well. It does make a difference. And so that's a good welcome and invitation to jump on in. The water's fine, and pursue things and come on down the rabbit hole, because there's a lot of information and a lot of people waiting to support you. And then we look forward to hearing from you, Gayle, in the future, and all the different things that you've got and the exciting projects and the knowledge that can be a powerful influence in things. And as people come together and get projects, our main goal is to have successful projects and to promote those who make that possible. So we sure appreciate you coming on for this interview, and we'll wrap that up.
All right.